Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special gifts. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewers Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome to the Globalists. Welcome to the Globalists. Welcome to the Globalists. We're in a new set, a brand new set.
I am a globalist. And I'm the globalist.
And I'm the globalist who wants to bring junk right into your kitchen.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 에이펙은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. South Korea and the United States kicked off their joint military exercise today. Around 18,000 South Korean troops are taking part, although about half of the field training exercises have been postponed to next month. U.S. President Donald Trump suggested that there is big progress being made regarding Russia, without providing details. This comes after his summit with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin last Friday ended without a deal, and ahead of his upcoming meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Former First Lady Kim Gon-hee, who has been arrested on charges including stock price manipulation and interference in party nominations, faces more questioning by a special counsel team today. South Korea and the United States launched their annual summertime military exercise, the Ulchi Freedom Shield, today, aimed at strengthening their defense against evolving security threats. While Pyongyang has denounced the drills, Seoul is also preparing for a nationwide civil defense drill later this week. Our Pyongyang starts us off.
The annual Ulchi Freedom Shield joint military exercise between South Korea and the United States begins today. The combined drills, aimed at defending the Korean peninsula in the event of a contingency, will run through the 28th.
This is a defensive exercise conducted annually, and this year's scenarios incorporate realistic threats, including those analyzed from recent wartime situations.
The exercise has also been strengthened to prepare for new security challenges, such as drone, GPS, and cyber attacks, as well as advanced weapons powered by cutting-edge technology.
The planning for Ulchi Freedom Shield, the virtual and live training, is done in coordination and agreement between the ROC and the U.S. What's important to remember is the quality of the training that will occur.
Around 18,000 South Korean troops are taking part, about the same as last year, along with a similar number of U.S. troops. About half of the 40 planned field training exercises have been postponed to next month, with the ongoing heat waves cited as a reason for the adjustment. While Pyongyang dismissed the drills, concerns remain that it may use the UFS as a pretext for provocations. In a statement last Thursday, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, called the joint drills worthless and futile. Meanwhile, a 20-minute nationwide civil defense drill will take place on Wednesday at 2 p.m. The drill will involve air raid evacuation training and exercises to clear the way for fire trucks, ambulances, and other rescue vehicles. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, the joint military exercise between South Korea and the United States has now kicked off. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Park Won-gun, Professor of North Korea Studies at Ewha Women's University. Professor Park, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So half of the drills have been postponed to next month, but North Korea is continuing to take a hardline stance against Seoul and Washington. How might the North respond to these joint drills, and what measures should South Korea take to improve inter-Korean relations?
Well, first of all, we really needed to understand exactly what North Korea's current strategy is. Back in December 2019, North Korea announced what's known as the frontal breakthrough line in Korea. We said the 정면 돌파전 during its fifth plenary meeting of the 7th Central Committee. Basically, they made it clear that they see South Korea as hostile state and wouldn't engage in any meaningful contact at all. More recently, at the 9th plenary meeting of the 8th Central Committee in December 2023, Kim Jong-un himself was even more direct, saying North Korea no longer sees South Korea as the same nation, but as an enemy country, and that peaceful reunification is off the table. After that, North Korea blew up the both Donghae-Kaesong Road last year, and trying to erase any sense of kinship with South Korea. You can see this continued in the public statement from Kim Yo-jong in July, and this month too. She made it clear again that North Korea wants nothing to do with us, South Korea. Because of all of this, I think the South Korea government shouldn't rush. We should be patient. It won't change overnight. There is a chance that United States and North Korea might hold a summit next year sometimes. We are not 100% sure, but sometimes next year. So South Korea should focus on closely coordinating with the United States and be ready to make the most of any opportunity when the situation changes.
Right, you just mentioned that South Korea needs to be patient with North Korea. It earlier took down propaganda loudspeakers near the border, but the North rejected the conciliatory gesture. Do you think this move had any effect?
Honestly, South Korea does not have any much so-called asymmetric influence over the North Korea. About the only real leverage we, South Korea, have is letting outside information get into North Korea. But ever since this government came in, we've basically stopped sending information to the North, even shutting down the National Intelligence Service's broadcast, which had run for 52 years. North Korea is extremely sensitive about the loudspeaker broadcast. For example, after the 2015 landmine incident, when we started up the loudspeaker, North Korea actually apologized to the South for the first time since the Korean War. That shows how much those broadcasts get under their skin. Whether or not North Korea follows our lead and takes down their speakers doesn't really matter. If South Korea stops sending information, North Korea will likely stop things like the counter-broadcasting, balloon launchers, or leaflet drops too. In the short term, that lowers tension in the border states, which is good.
I see. And last Friday on Liberation Day, President Lee Jae-myung said he hoped North Korea would return to the negotiating table. Will Lee summit with Trump in Washington next week open the door for these kind of talks?
Well, I think there is a good chance that issues like the Korean Peninsula, peace of the Korean Peninsula War, and the North Korean denuclearization will come up in the upcoming summit. But my feeling is that 2018 Singapore's agreement might get brought back into the conversation. That deal centered on three things: improving North Korea-US relations, advancing the peace process on the Korean Peninsula, and finally, denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Right now, North Korea doesn't seem interested in any of those, especially not denuclearization. They haven't mentioned about denuclearization. They totally deny any kind of attempt of the denuclearization. But Singapore agreement is something Kim Jong-un himself signed. In North Korea, there is a very important principle that leader, so-called 수령, is never wrong. So Kim cannot easily just walk away from something he put in his signature on, and we've never really seen them publicly reject the Singapore deal. Trump, on the other hand, would probably love to revisit it. He sees the Singapore summit as one of his great achievements. So for South Korea ourselves, all three items from Singapore would contribute to regional stability and including denuclearization. But we do need to make sure the terms and objectives around denuclearization are crystal clear.
I see. And instead of showing signs of returning to talks, North Korea seems to be strengthening relations with Russia, right?
Yes, I think so. Especially after seeing recent meeting between Trump and Putin, Kim Jong-un probably feels that Russia, as one of the major powers standing up to the United States, is a very attractive partner. With the war in Ukraine dragging on, North Korea and Russia seem likely to grow even closer for now. But that also leaves Kim Jong-un feeling a little bit uneasy about this situation. If you look at the recent Trump-Putin exchanges, it is clear that the fate of smaller countries, I'm talking about Ukraine, they can be decided by deals or compromise between the big powers. Even if North Korea's relationship with Russia is good now, but there is no guarantee Russia won't cut a deal with the United States in the future and leave North Korea out in the court. In fact, Russia is more likely to use their leverage to get what it wants from the United States, even if that means putting the squeeze on the North Korea over denuclearization. All this probably leaves Kim Jong-un with a lot to worry about that.
I see. All right, Professor Park, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Over in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump has promised big progress on Russia, despite failing to achieve any peace deal in his recent meeting with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Trump is also set to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, with European and NATO leaders vowing to stand with the Ukrainian leader in Washington on Monday. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump, in a social media post on Sunday, promised big progress on Russia. However, he did not provide any details on what progress has been made since the no-deal after summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin last Friday in Alaska. According to sources cited by Reuters, Washington and Moscow have floated proposals under which Russia would give up small pockets of occupied Ukrainian territory in exchange for Kyiv ceding fortified land in the east and freezing front lines elsewhere. But most importantly for Kyiv, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a security guarantee is something Washington will continue to push for Ukraine.
In the meantime, the one thing we do know that Ukraine has said repeatedly and publicly talked about is security guarantees. That's a very reasonable request. That's something we're working on, and that's something the Russian side has to understand, obviously.
Washington has also discussed the possibility of a defense pact, as Trump's envoy to Russia, Steve Witkoff, told Fox News on Sunday that the U.S. and its European partners could offer Ukraine NATO-style security guarantees outside the alliance framework as part of a settlement.
It means that the United States is potentially prepared to be able to give Article 5 security guarantees, but not from NATO, directly from the United States and other European countries. That is big. I mean, really big.
Meanwhile, European and NATO leaders announced they will stand with President Vladimir Zelenskyy in Washington on Monday, presenting a united front as Trump pursues peace talks with Russia. Leaders from Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and Finland are joining Zelenskyy after his exclusion from Trump's summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin last Friday. Their show of support comes after a tense Oval Office meeting in February when Trump clashed with Zelenskyy in a heated exchange. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Former First Lady Kim Gun-hee and a close associate are scheduled to face questioning by a special counsel team today. The session, which began at 10 a.m., comes as special counsel Min Jung-gi investigates corruption allegations surrounding the former First Lady, including ties to Kim Hye-sung, who is often described as the butler of her family. It will be the former First Lady's second interrogation since her arrest last Tuesday, and the first for Kim Hye-sung, who was taken into custody Friday on charges of embezzling $2.4 million from IMS Mobility, a company in which he holds a stake. Prosecutors suspect he diverted part of the funds into another firm he effectively controlled. The inquiry is also examining whether the embezzled money or other profits were funneled to Kim Gun-hee's family. Both she and Kim Hye-sung have denied the allegations. In other news, as the Netflix animated film KPop Demon Hunters continues to gain popularity, Korean traditional culture has also been coming to light. Our An Sung-jin tells us more.
The dense blue fur shakes as the tiger stands on its feet. Its oversized mask, weathered yet alive, seems to breathe. This is 사자춤, or 사자탈춤, directly translated as the lion dance. It's a traditional Korean dance or folk play that portrays a lion to bring good fortune. But Yeonhee Connect Il, a group of young performers, have given it a twist to it, using a tiger instead. The tiger happens to resemble the character Duffy from KPop Demon Hunters, but the group say they began using it instead of a lion to combine elements of its fierceness, traditional Korean folk paintings, and the symbol of the mythical Seoul Hette creature with its team color blue.
The fact that this piece reminded some of K-pop Demon Hunters suggests that we successfully conveyed a universal narrative combining traditional themes and immersive media.
Through performances like this, the group works on bringing traditional folk performance arts back to life. It often performs a type of Korean percussion music known as hamulnori. But rather than merely replicating the tradition, it instead adds digital projections or modern media like DJing.
We aim to continue building on the foundation of traditional Korean performance arts while incorporating modern aspects through contemporary storytelling, media art, and choreography to create entirely new stage experiences.
For them, it's not about reproducing the past, but creating works that breathe with the present. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
With the new government planning to promote artificial intelligence and energy sectors, South Korea's Jeollanam-do Province, home to related institutions, is now seeking to create an industry academic cooperation hub. Our Cha Yun-kyung reports.
The Korea Institute of Energy Technology, or KANTECH, which is the first global university solely focused on energy and technology research, welcomed its first undergraduate and graduate students in 2022. KANTECH has 5 major energy research areas, which are AI and energy materials and devices, green modernization, hydrogen energy, and environmental and climate technology. KANTECH launched a National Energy Research Center last month to establish industry-academic cooperation in order to help the energy industry utilize and capitalize on its R&D results.
We are studying models that can be designed by integrating power system operation, generation, transmission, and storage, which is at the highest level in Korea and, in my opinion, is not far behind the U.S. level.
Jeollanam-do Province's efforts are now perfectly aligned with the new government's policy direction, laying the groundwork to take a greater step forward. The province will lead in energy transformation, which is a common task for mankind.
The government is expected to open a climate and energy department in Jeollanam-do Province utilizing KEPCO and KANTEC, which can create industry-academic cooperation clusters. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Ji. Good morning, Ji.
Good morning, Anji.
So, Ji, let's begin in the Middle East. Large crowds have gathered in Israel calling for an end to the Gaza war. Tell us more.
That's right. Tel Aviv's Hostage Square was filled with hundreds of thousands of people on Sunday, demanding an end to the Gaza war and a deal to bring home the remaining hostages. On the same day, a nationwide strike swept the country, bringing much of Israel to a standstill. In one of the largest protests since the conflict began, approximately 500,000 people reportedly participated in the Tel Aviv demonstration alone, with other protests around Israel bringing the nationwide total to an estimated 1 million people. The protests were organized by the Hostages and Missing Families Forum and included a one-day national strike on Sunday morning. This strike involved blocking roads and halting work nationwide. Israeli police made dozens of arrests during the day. The protests coincided with the Israeli military's finalization of plans for a major ground operation aimed at capturing Gaza City. Despite the growing public pressure, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the protests and defended the ongoing military offensive. In Pakistan's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, flash floods and landslides have killed more than 300 people, with over 200 still missing. According to Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority, by Sunday morning, the death toll had risen to at least 337 people, with most killed in flash floods. In Buner district, a 3.5-hour drive from the capital, Islamabad, 207 people died after the area saw more than 150 millimeters of rain in just 1 hour on Friday. Rescue efforts are underway, but heavy rainfall is forecast to continue until August 21st. While the region typically experiences monsoon rains between June and September, scientists say that climate change is intensifying and increasing the frequency of flash floods and landslides. Air Canada cabin crew have defied a government-mandated return-to-work order and are continuing their strike. This comes despite a binding arbitration directive issued by the Canada Industrial Relations Board, which requires more than 10,000 flight attendants to resume their duties by 2 p.m. on Sunday. Now entering its third day, the strike has grounded 700 flights daily, affecting travel for up to 130,000 passengers each day. Leaders of the Canadian Union of Public Employees have condemned the order as unconstitutional and are demanding a fair contract that includes compensation for unpaid ground duties. British actor Terence Stamp, who played the role of villain General Zod in the original Superman films, died on Sunday, aged 87. Throughout his 6-decade career, Stamp earned an Oscar nomination in 1963 for his first film, Billy Budd, and delivered standout performances, including The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, in which he portrayed a transgender woman. Stamp's final screen appearance was in Last Night in Soho in 2021. His family stated he leaves behind an extraordinary body of work, both as an actor and as a writer, that will continue to touch and inspire people for years to come.
Those of us in the capital and surrounding areas need to have an umbrella handy today. It could rain down heavily in northern Gyeonggi-do and northern Gangwon-do with up to 80 millimeters in the forecast. Meanwhile, the capital area and southern Gyeonggi-do might be seeing 5 to 40 millimeters. Now, the southern regions will have mostly clear skies, but sudden showers are possible this afternoon in Gwangju, Jeollanam-do Provinces, as well as Jeju Island. Heatwave advisories have been expanded and intensified nationwide. Heat wave warnings have been issued for the east coast of Gangwon-do, southern regions, and Jeju Island as well. So this afternoon, Seoul, Daegu, Gwangju will be getting up to 33 degrees Celsius. Seoul will be topping out at 31 degrees. However, it's going to feel even hotter with that high humidity. Looking ahead, rain will be frequent in the capital area in Gangwon-do Province through the middle of this week. Meanwhile, the heat wave and tropical nights will continue to stay with us.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
저는 만 5살에 바이올린을 시작했는데요. 바이올린 소리를 워낙 좋아했어서 그 특유의 따뜻함과 약간 사람의 목소리 같은 목소리를 갖고 있거든요, 바이올린이. 저는 무대에 올랐을 때보다는 이제 혼자 연습할 때 더 큰 희열을 느끼는데 제가 표현하고자 하는 음악이 잘 나왔을 때 그때 가장 큰 기쁨을 느끼는 것 같아요. 그래서 저만의 색깔을 어떻게 하면 찾아갈 수 있을까 그걸 제일 많이 고민하는 것 같아요. 아무래도 연습을 할 때는 이제 생각과 고민을 많이 하는 반면에 무대에서 연주할 때는 정말 머릿속을 비우고 아무 생각도 안 하려고 하는 것 같아요. 무대에서는 자유롭게 콩쿨 무대도 저만의 독주라고 생각하는 자세를 가지려고 하고 있어요. 사실 바이올린과는 거의 제 인생의 대부분을 같이 해왔기 때문에 저를 힘들게 할 때도 많지만 제가 가장 사랑하고 아끼는 존재입니다. 작곡가가 전달하고 싶은 메시지와 또 제 자신이 관객들에게 전달하고 싶은 메시지를 모두 다 설득력 있게 잘 전달할 수 있는 그런 연주자가 되고 싶습니다.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special gifts. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewers Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation. Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, August 18th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Good morning.
Good morning. And also Tae is with us.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday, and as we kick off a brand new work week, we're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. A new snapshot of national sentiment that captures how people are feeling about their country and its culture today. It's a chance for all of us to step back from the daily headlines and see the broader trends shaping how Koreans view themselves and the nation as a whole. So recently, a survey was conducted to explore how Koreans perceive their own country and its culture. Kyun, could you walk us through the key findings and insights from this survey? What stood out the most to you about how Koreans view Korea today?
Sure. So August 15th marked National Liberation Day here in Korea, and this year marked the 80th anniversary and celebrated our country from the liberation of Japanese colonial rule. And to commemorate 80 years of liberation, a survey was conducted by a research center to find out what Koreans see as the nation's strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, otherwise known as a SWOT analysis. Today, I would like to focus on the strengths, so let's take a look at the screen for more details. The survey asked 2,000 adults aged 18 and over on what they think South Korea's strengths are as a country. 16% answered they felt a sense of pride through a collective unity the nation showed during national crises, such as the 1997 financial crisis to the May 18 democratization movement and the illegal emergency martial law incident of December 3rd last year. Another area that stood out was the uniqueness of Korean culture that began from the Korean Wave or the Hallyu. In particular, men in their 20s and women in their 30s frequently highlighted Korea's distinctive culture as we continue to see a rise in K-culture, spreading to K-food and even K-sauna, as we saw from Netflix's animated film KPop Demon Hunters. The rest followed by 11% saying modern history of industrialization, democratization, and modernization, along with interest in education and human resources. And lastly, 10% of respondents said advanced IT infrastructure as the nation's strength.
You know, I feel like a lot of people, we've also mentioned on the show numerous times about the cultural aspect, but I think it's really interesting that you point out the unity aspect of it, because I still remember the videos from when people all bring the gold from their homes, like in the earrings during the financial crisis that you mentioned. Right. So in particular, the survey asked young people about the aspects of Korean culture they consider most unique or original. Their answers offer a glimpse into what today's young people value and take pride in when it comes to their heritage and identity. So what kinds of cultural elements did they highlight, Taeyeon?
Well, looking at the survey Ki-eun has just shared, we can see that after unity of the nation during national crisis, culture and Hallyu is one of the main areas that young people take pride in. And I think a good example of this is the recent World of Street Woman Fighter, which is the third season of Korea's popular dance survival show, Street Woman Fighter. And this season doesn't just capture attention domestically, but it reached out to 38 countries, including the US, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and through global platforms, it created a huge impact. And I think this success demonstrates both the power of Korean content and the influence of Korean dance. And the Korean team Pump Up received high praise for their impressive performances, combining technical skill, artistry, and emotional connection with the audience as well. And what's interesting is that traditional Korean dance has also been making a strong impression among global audiences over the years. For example, the Seoul City Dance Company will present 일무, a court dance from the UNESCO-listed 종묘 제례악 at the Sejong Center from the August 21st to 24th. And it premiered in 2022 and has reached its fourth season this year, earning acclaim both in Korea and abroad, including a sold-out performance at New York's Lincoln Center in 2023, praised by the New York Times for its dialectical harmony and expansion. And even in a theater of over 3,000 seats, tickets for this year's show has already sold out with enhanced lighting and video design adding to the performance. So when we talk about the aspects of Korean culture that young people consider unique, it's not just modern Hallyu content, but it also includes the depth and artistry of traditional culture. In this case, I took dance as an example, but I believe it can be anything like food, fashion, or music, you name it.
I'm glad you mentioned dance because I watched Street Woman Fighter the first season, and it was really impressive. I didn't know Korea was that good at street dancing or just dancing in general.
Korea is also famous for b-boying as well,
of course
right?
Right.
Yes.
From a long time ago.
Well, like that's another.
It's in our blood.
It's another dancing.
Yes.
That's why traditional dance is also very popular. So to get a global perspective on how Korea and its culture are viewed, we'll be speaking with a millennial from a different country who's currently living here about her take on what makes life in Korea unique. And that conversation is coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Laura Benito, who's from Spain, but is currently living in Korea. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So how long have you lived in Korea, and during your time here, which aspects of Korean culture have you experienced firsthand that left a lasting impression on you?
Well, I came here first as a traveler in 2014, but I moved here officially in September 2016. So that's almost 10 years. And I think something that really drew me to the country was always the Cheong culture. I feel like that's a point that we have in common, Spanish and Korea. And although in Spanish we don't really have a word about it, but I was very amazed at how warm and how very welcoming people were in Korea. But not only in Korea, but when I was in Spain, I was with the KPop community. I'm sorry for my dog. I was with the KPop community, and a lot of people always you could feel the tone in them and how welcoming they were towards me. But when I came to Korea, I really could feel what that meant. For the first year in here, I was actually by myself in a Koshiwon, and the lady from the Punshik tip that I always ate at, she always asked me about my day and about my job and how I was, and that is something very you cannot find in any other country.
I definitely agree with you how Koreans, I think all Koreans have Chong, and it's a great thing to see. Lara, what do you think are the defining features or strength of Korean culture that make it stand out from other countries?
I think Koreans, especially as a singer myself, I think they focus on quality and, of course, about quantity as well, but I think good quality of art and music. And you can see that historically, but also right now, currently with K-pop and all of the trends. Korea has this incredible ability to take something deeply traditional and reimagine it with modern touches. And I think that's what lately has been catching the eye of foreigners and the foreign market. And of course, K-pop is the most obvious example. But it goes beyond pop music. You can see it in film, where right now Korean directors and actors are winning major international awards. And in design and in fashion and even in food, as you were saying. So there's this sense of passion plus perfectionism that I think no other country has. You have to do it, but if you're going to do it, it has to be amazing. And I think that's the result of Korea's very deep effort to make something really good.
Oh, Lara, I totally agree with you. This might be a tough one, but I'm sure our viewers are curious. As a foreigner, how would you describe Korea? And if you had to capture the country in just a few words, what would you say?
Well, I'm gonna say something that maybe everybody knows, it's fast paced, the pali culture. It's something very much present, but a lot of people hear that and they go to the negative side of it. I want to remark how fast and adaptive Korea is. Koreans adapt in a bit into any kind of trend, and it's not just to any kind of trend, but it's also to the competitiveness, and it makes it's really easy for Koreans to insert themselves in any kind of market. So right now, because Koreans, thanks to KPop Demon Hunters and everything, right? I was in this Hamburg expo I think it was last weekend, and you could see everything was kind of KPop Demon Hunters kind of themed. So you can see how fast, okay, this is a trend. I'm going to do it right now. And I think that is a really beautiful thing, and that is what makes Korea stand out.
I think you highlighted really important key points about Korea. You mentioned Chong and also adaptability just now. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just heard from a millennial from overseas who's been experiencing life in Korea firsthand, sharing her personal impressions of the Korean culture and daily life here. So now we want to bring the focus back to the survey that we talked about in the beginning of the show. So the survey broke down perception of the country by generation, offering a closer look at how views differ between age groups. So let's start with the younger generation. So what stood out to you about how millennials and Gen Zs here view Korea compared to the older generation?
So the perceptions among generations differed sharply. And the older generation thought that the nation's development from the Japanese colonization to the Korean War and other historical tragic events was achieved through sacrifice and hard work as a whole, with a strong sense of connection to their own lives, and in turn, I guess, feeling a great pride in it. In contrast, those in their 20s and 30s, the millennials and the Gen Zs, living in a world of uncertainty amid economic hardship and, of course, rising inflation, defined themselves as the most unfortunate generation since the founding of Korea's first kingdom. Now, these are some strong words, but I guess in some sense, the younger generation are a bit more vocal about their current situation and how they feel, and they want to be heard from the public so that pragmatic changes can be actually implemented. And there seems to be, I guess, a kind of lack of unity compared to past generation, as there is abundant information and resources to shape our thoughts and seek answers from, hence becoming, I guess, more individualistic compared to our older generations. However, in the past, perhaps the nation only had themselves and the people around them to be dependent on, and had a stronger kind of mindset to keeping to traditions. And it was kind of thought as something wrong to do if they went against cultural norms. So I guess these were the biggest differences between the 20s and 30s and compared to the past generations.
So I think, like you said, I think with the younger generation, I feel like this economic uncertainty feels really prolonged.
It has.
And I think from our parents' generation, like back then, like if you work hard, you can achieve all your dreams. But I feel like now, because it feels really daunting, I feel like if they less so.
We've given up a lot of things, including marriage or even like dating as well. And we talked about this many times on the show, but I think we'll eventually overcome it, and it has to work collectively as well.
So Taehyung, why do you think perceptions of Korea differ so much between the younger generation and older generation? And what factors might be shaping these contrasting views, whether it's social, economic, or cultural influences?
Well, I also can see some interesting generational differences these days in how people perceive Korea. People in their 20s and 30s tend to highlight aspects like K-pop, K-culture innovation, and global influence as sources of pride. And they value how Korea is represented on the global stage, from entertainment and fashion to technology and even lifestyle. Older generations, on the other hand, tend to emphasize stability, cohesion, social cohesion, and the preservation of tradition. And like Ki-hoon said, for them, Korea's strength often lies in its long-standing traditions, economic growth over the decades, and the continuity of societal values. And these differences are shaped by a mix of social, economic, and cultural factors. And millennials and Gen Z has grown up in a digitally connected, globally aware environment, and they experience Korea not just as a nation, but as a strong exporter of the culture, and they experience Korea in that way through K-pop, Korean dramas, and innovative tech, and on the world stage. And older generations, but lived through periods of industrialization, political transition, and rapid modernization as well. So the contrast between generations reflect not only their lived experiences, but also the way they engage with Korea's identity. And I think both perspectives are valid, and together they provide a fuller picture of how Korea should be understood and valued across the nation. Yeah,
I think it's really important. Like, obviously culture is really important too, but I think you point out traditions as well. Do you think there are any traditions that you would like to see preserved more, like from the younger generation?
Well, I might sound like someone from old generation, but I think the traditional value of family is really important, like getting married and having children. I am married and I have 2 children, and I think we are seeing increasing number of people who choose to live alone, and they believe marriage and having children is optional, but there is a joy and true meaning of having my own family. So I think it's a really important value that we have to preserve. Yes.
Right. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with living alone, but like you said, I feel like there's less attention on how important and how meaningful having, like you said, a family is as well. So Kyun, when it comes to the challenges they've identified, what kind of solutions or changes do millennials and Gen Zs believe could address these issues?
One could be in the job market, creating more diverse and equal job opportunities. There is still a high demand for the traditional sectors like medicine, finance, and law. But with AI advancement, more people are pursuing careers in computer engineering, like coding, cybersecurity, digital marketing, and so on. And even though it makes sense to follow the trend by meeting the demands and keeping up with the global dynamics, there are many jobs that are turned away for its pure physical difficulty. For example, blue-collar jobs are seen as arduous and not paying enough for its physical demand. As we're seeing in Korea right now with the increase of foreign workers in farms, factories, and construction sites. So one simple solution could be improving the work environment and increasing the salary, which is, of course, very much easier said than done. But if the government comes up with more long-term support programs and provides like tax incentives for younger workers to perhaps become local farmers or even to just work in these sectors of where we experience labor shortage, our country will have a stronger workforce and domestic economy, becoming less vulnerable to global uncertainties.
So are there any other changes that could be helpful for the younger generation, Sam?
Yeah, there are definitely some additional changes that could be helpful for the younger generation. One major area is family and work-life support. And many young people, like I said, hesitate to get married or have children due to high cost and a lack of supportive social systems. And I believe we dealt with this issue many times on News Generation as well, because it's a very important issue here in Korea these days. And personally, I'm married, like I said before already, with 2 children, but making those choices wasn't easy. Even now, I often juggle parenting, household responsibilities, and work, trying to maintain balance. And of course, compared to my parents' generation or those who raised the children 10 or 20 years ago, I believe the situation is much improved and various policies are being tested, and I believe they will continue to gradually improve in the future. But still, I believe expanding access to affordable childcare, flexible work conditions or options, and family-friendly policies could help more young people feel confident in these life choices.
I think there's already a lot of good amount of policies going on, like you said, but I think there could always be more. Is there one policy that you feel like would be helpful?
I think giving parents more options to take a leave.
Especially when the kids are sick.
Yeah, especially when kids are sick. Yeah, especially when it's like COVID or other infectious diseases. Yeah, they need parents' care.
That's true. These kids can't take care of themselves.
Right.
So I think these small policies also are really important. So looking ahead, Kyun, what do Koreans see as biggest opportunities for their country? Are there any particular industries, social trends, or cultural strengths that people believe could drive Korea's growth and success in the future?
So according to the survey that I mentioned in the beginning, since Korean culture was recognized as a strength, it was also identified as an opportunity. As many industries have grown thanks to Hallyu, its continued expansion is expected to create even more opportunities for Korea, going beyond just tourism. And one example will be the growing competitiveness of Korean IP in the content industry, like what Seong just mentioned with like the Street Woman Fighter. That's just one example, and how it can expand to other sectors like the food industry, improving the export market of the country in turn. Additionally, many Koreans believed that if the global market continues to grow and South Korea maintains a balanced diplomacy with China and the US, the country will be able to seize further opportunities and make threats into greater opportunities moving forward.
It's so interesting to see how everything is connected right now.
Right.
And conversely, what do Koreans view as the most pressing risks or crises facing the country today? Are there any specific economic or social challenges that people feel could have the biggest impact on Korea's future, Sam?
Well, when we look at the risk Korean sees as most pressing today, several key issues stand out. But besides the concerns I mentioned above, population aging is another significant issue. As more people enter old age, there is growing pressure on healthcare, pensions, and public services. And at the same time, fewer young people join the workforce, giving up on job searches altogether is another concern. And we've talked about young people classified as NEET before, not in education, employment, or training. And this could also affect economic growth and innovation. But luckily, there are positive signs as well. Over recent years, Korea has introduced policies to tackle these challenges. And there are programs to support the elderly or to encourage higher workforce participation among both senior citizens and young people. And policies to provide more support for families and childcare are also underway. So while economic, demographic, and social challenges remain, these ongoing efforts are gradual improvements offer hope that Korea is moving forward.
So to wrap up our discussion today, when people think about the future of Korea, what kind of country do they hope it will become, Kyun? Like, what vision or aspirations do Koreans share for the nation in the years ahead, whether it's in terms of society, culture, or global standing?
I think becoming distinctively Korean, not overshadowed by our neighboring countries like Japan and China, and discontinuing the K-trend by adding the Korean twist to pretty much everything, but most importantly, holding on to our heritage and culture by maintaining it as long as we can and not losing it to other stronger nations. And I think Korea can now feel and act proud of what they have achieved so far and become more open, accepting to changes. And instead of the 빨리빨리 culture, I think we can do the 천천히 culture. We can kind of slow down, enjoy the ride, because we've achieved so much, and like just not to burn out as a nation, because I've seen many young people, burnt out.
So I think it's a new trend these days. Slow something, like slow food.
Yeah, everything's
slow.
So just taking it easy could be one option.
I think that's a good point. Do you have anything to add to this?
Well, when Koreans think about the future of our country, many share a vision of society that is fair, inclusive, and offers equal opportunities for all. And people hope for stronger social safety nets and more opportunities for families, policies that allow everyone, regardless age or background, to thrive. And in terms of culture, I think there is a strong desire to preserve and celebrate Korea's unique identity, like Kyun said. And young people are proud of the global recognition of K-pop, K-dance, and other creative industries, while also valuing the beauty and depth of traditional arts.
I'm glad you mentioned tradition, and also you mentioned interesting things too.
Yes,
I think it's important.
KPop Demon Hunters is one of the great examples.
It is.
Yes.
And so no country is perfect, and while Korea is no exception, it's clear from these insights that there is a deep sense of hope, determination, and pride among Koreans for their nation's future. Whether it's building on the country's rich cultural heritage, addressing social and economic challenges, or seizing new opportunities on the global stage, the vision people share is one of growth, resilience, and ambition, a Korea that continues to shine, innovate, and make its mark in the world for generations to come. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. A big thanks to Q.
Thanks for having me.
For coming in, and Taeyong.
Thank you.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. One room. So, you're surviving in Korea if you signed a contract for a one-room